Now that we have our activator, the next thing that we're going to do is to launch that power up, which is the missile power up in our game. But before that, we need to have a condition wherein our player should be able to launch that power up or use that power up. And that condition should be this power up UI here should at least have a value of greater than 1 or greater or equal than 1. And whenever the value is true, the player can use the power up. And whenever the player uses the power up, the value here in our UI for power up should decrease, or making the player and the number of power up the player has will decrease. And when it is equated to 0, the player cannot shoot any missile. So that is what we're going to do in this module. So to do that, we're gonna head first to our power up, which is here, and the power up spawn. Let's try to play the game again and see how it was working. Here we have it, letters are spawning, and if I'm correct, yep, in every second a power up activator will spawn or fall from. However, it just passes through to our player. So first we're gonna have to attach a script to it so that it can gather a data from our player, that whenever it touches the player or whenever the player catches that missile power activator, it will increment its value here, and it will allow the player to shoot a missile. So let's click the power up. We have there the object spawn power up, and this one, the power up spawn prefab, we're gonna attach script to it. So in our assets, head to script, and let's have C# script, and let's call it power up collide, since we have the letter collide that is responsible for the letters falling in the scene. And since we have power up activator falling in the scene, we should have a collision function in it. So power up collide, that's the name of our script. Okay, and then we're gonna head over to our prefabs level 1 and select this one and hit this padlock key here so that it will lock the inspector view. And then we're gonna head over to our scripts and drag power up collide in the prefab, and we're gonna open this one. Wait, I think I made a mistake. We shouldn't be attaching this to our power up, since we're gonna make a tag to it. No, we're not gonna tag this to, we're not gonna attach this to our power up prefab. Okay, not responding, what's happening? Okay, let's close this first, and then let's remove the component. Yep, we're gonna attach this one to our player catcher. So the player, that is where we are going to attach the power up collide. So aside from, oh no, remove component, we should hit the unlock key here so that the inspector will be changed whenever we select a different game object. So player, we already have the player move script and the collide script, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, right letter collide, and we're gonna add the the power up collide. So in the power up collide, I'm gonna open the script in our IDE. Okay, so here we're gonna have the function which will enable us to detect collision from the object. So we're gonna use the on trigger or on collision enter. But since we don't want any strong collision with objects, we just want it to pass through but still detect that game object, we're gonna use the on trigger function. So below the update event function, we're gonna write void on trigger enter 2D enter 2D. Why it didn't automatically? Let's try it again. Void on trigger enter 2D, and let's just make this as call. Okay, so here we want the power up activator, or we want the player to catch the missile. So as far as I can tell, we already tagged the power up spawn, the prefabs. Yep, it is already tagged as missile. So if the player which this script is attached to call that game object, that tag is equal to missile. So whenever we have that, let's have first a comment here since we haven't made that in our game manager script. The value of power up text will increment, or the variable will increment. The variable power up will increment. So, and then when that happens, we're gonna destroy that game object. Destroy call that game object. Destroy call that game object, or you can also add, if you want, audio source. So that's it. So whenever the game object or the power up collides with the catcher, it will increment the value of power up and then destroy that object, the power up object. It's like you catch it and it's destroyed, and then an audio source will be played if you want. This is optional. Okay, so let's have first here the increment. So we're gonna have that in our game manager class. So first we're gonna have to declare int power up. Let's make it public because we're gonna access this later on in other script. The variable itself, public int power up. By default it is 0. Yep, 0 int. And then we're gonna have here a function that will be responsible for the incrementing of that value. So public void power up number, and then we're simply gonna write power up plus plus, and then hit plus plus semicolon, and then we're gonna attach it, or we're gonna show it into the power up text which is in our UI. So we're gonna declare again text. Let's just have it here, public score text. Let's say power up text. So we have declared text, power up text, and in the function, just like in the score and in the life point, power up text dot text is equal to power up dot to string. Since it is an integer value, we're going to convert it into string so that it will be shown in the text UI. Hit Ctrl S, and then we're going to call this function in our power up collide. So here, the one that we made a comment, or we write a note a while ago. So this, before the game object will be destroyed, we're gonna call the game manager dot instance, and the function, what is the name of the function? So let's just simply copy this one. Okay, and then a semicolon. So let's see if it works, and make sure that the missile missile prefab is on is trigger, or the is trigger is enabled. Game manager, let's hit Ctrl S since we made a change in it. Okay, the scripting or the compiling is done. Let's check the prefab if it is on trigger. Yep, it is trigger. So whenever the catcher catches the missile, it will be destroyed, and the value here will increment. So game manager, we have to input here the power up text since we declared it as public text, core text, power up text, canvas, and drag the power up text here. So let's see if it will increment. Okay, let's see. Okay, there you have it. Now the power up text is incrementing 2, and there we have it. I don't know why is it written like that. So power up text 0. Why is it not changing? Okay, let's say we don't have a value of 0. Let's say public int power up. Okay, let's try it. Okay, let's see again. Okay. Okay, there we have it. Maybe we should just delete the default text of power up. Let's just delete this one. Yep. Okay, let's see. It's still there. Okay, there we have it. The power up is now being incremented whenever we catch the power up activator. Just like the score, whenever we catches the right letter, the score increments. So we already have achieved the power up being incremented. So next, we're gonna have to make a function wherein whenever the player shoots the power up, the value will decrease. So to do that, we're gonna make a function here below the power up number, public void power up used, since the player uses the power up. So we're just gonna write simply power up. Instead of incrementing it plus plus, we're gonna write minus minus. So we since we want to decrease the value of the power up text, or the power up value, whenever the player uses it. And then power up text dot text is equal to power up dot to string. Oh, not plus. And there we have it. And we're gonna call this one in another script. Game manager. So here we have it. Let's just delete this one. We're not gonna attach an audio source. It's up to you if you want to attach an audio source. So void on trigger the missile. Whenever we collide the missile, game manager that instance the power up number will be called, and destroy call that game object. So now here in the power up collide script, we're gonna make a condition wherein the player will be allowed to shoot the power up. So for that, we're gonna have a data type called bool, or a boolean type of variable, boolean. So the short is bool. So bool only stores two values, which is true or false. So I'm gonna make here bool can power up, meaning it can use a power up, is equal to false. So by default, we're gonna declare can power up false. And then whenever the player catches the missile, and since it will add a value here, meaning the player is now allowed to shoot a missile. So we're gonna change this bool variable, the can power up, to true when this collision happens. So before the game object is destroyed, we're gonna write can power up is equal to true. So let's have it once again. We declared a can power up boolean type of variable so that whenever the game starts, the player is not allowed to shoot a missile if the value here in the UI power up is 0. But if it's greater than 0 or greater than or equal to 1, the player can now shoot a missile. So we can have here can power up is equal to true. And then here in the update function, if can power up, meaning if can power up is true, if you put here exclamation point, meaning if can power up is false. But see, we can also write it like that, if can power up is true, or you can write it manually, is equal to true, like that. You can have that also, but for easier way, you can just write it like this. It will be read by the IDE that the can power up is true. If can power up is true, we're gonna have here the function player can shoot missile, and we haven't made that function yet. Player can shoot missile, and here also if the player shoots a missile, the power up or this function here, the power up use will be also called. So let's have that here. No, in the game manager, let's have a function wherein the player will be able to shoot the missile. So since the missile is a game object here, we haven't made yet the prefabs. We're gonna make that later. We're gonna have to declare a game object. So I don't want it to be included here. Let's just separate public game object missile. Okay, public game object missile, and a transform public transform missile spawn. Okay, so we're gonna make a function below here. Let's make public void power up shoot. Let's name it like that. You can name it however you want. Power up shoot, and we're gonna use the instantiate function. So let's have it now. Instantiate, and then the object that we're going to instantiate is this one, missile. Then from what position? Here the transform missile spawn dot transform dot position, and we're gonna need a rotation. So whatever the rotation of this missile should be the same as it is being instantiated, or whenever it is instantiated or being shot by the player. So missile dot transform dot rotation. Okay, that's not okay. And then let's try this one, and you will see that there will still be a necessary code to be written below here. So let's make a prefab of that missile. No, not that one, not the missile spawn, not the prefab, the power ups parts. Yeah, letter, and let's make it bigger like this, and then we're gonna add not the box collider, I want the circle collider. No, not that one. Capsule collider, and set it to is trigger. Then adjust the collider. Boop. Boop. Okay, then we're gonna add a rigid body since we are going to launch it from the player's position. Rigid body 2D, and set the gravity scale to 0 because we don't want it to fall as it is being launched by the player. And freeze rotation, we're not gonna do that. And then we're gonna make this, let's rename this missile. Let's just name it missile. Yep. And then we're gonna attach a script here, also a collision script, wherein if it collides with the right letter, let's say we can just attach the script here. What's the script of the letter collide? Yep, we have a letter collide, not that one. Yeah, right letter collide. So we can just attach this one. Should we? Nope, we're not gonna attach that one. We're gonna make a new one. We're gonna make a new one for the power up itself, or for the missile itself. But for now, let's just see how this will be instantiated based from the script that we have written here. So guys, I hope you're not yet confused. I know that I'm talking a lot of terms in here, or concepts in this module. You can just rewatch this if you get mind boggled with this one. Well, anyway, let's just make this a prefab. The missile, go to prefabs level 1 and drag it as a prefab, and head over to game manager, and we're gonna fill in here the empty objects. So power up, public power up, we're not gonna make that one. Cortex here, the missile and the missile spawn, we're gonna deactivate this from the scene. And the prefabs, head over to game manager, the missile, which is the object that we will be instantiating, drag it here, and the missile spawn the position of the player. So let's see, hit Ctrl S, Control S, power up collide, Control S. So, okay, we can't instantiate that if we don't have an input button that we will be using in order to instantiate that missile. So let's pause here, and we'll have that on the next video. So my recommendation for you is to rewatch again this video and follow the steps that I presented here in this module. Follow it thoroughly, and if you have any confusions, you can just message me. Anyway, in all of my or in all of the videos of this tutorial series, I will be including in the description box the link for my social media account. So in the next video, we're gonna shoot now the missile.